Welcome to the High Performance Edge, the podcast for contractors who lead with building science and want to turn that advantage into a stronger, more successful business. Whether you're in HVAC, insulation, solar, or home performance, we dig into strategy, sales, marketing, operations, hiring, and customer service approaches that power stable, more profitable companies. Hear from top contractors and industry experts as we explore what it takes to thrive as a very different kind of contractor. Here's your host, founder and CEO of Energy Circle, Peter Troast.
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for being here. As most of you know by now, I'm excited about this newish term that's been gaining real traction in the high-performance contracting world, permanent load reduction. It's a smart reframe and it's turned a lot of heads. Fix the home's envelope first, reduce the load, and everything downstream, the equipment, the sizing, the comfort, gets easier and works better. So I wanted to have someone on from the envelope side who's been an observer, teacher, and advocate for this his whole career, long before it had a captivating new label. Ken Allison runs training and biz dev for IDI, the insulation distributor, and he's got more face time and scar tissue helping contractors with this transition than just about anyone I know. Decades of firsthand experience with the playbook, successes, and challenges of the air sealing and insulation business. What's great about this one is how Ken grounds the whole house model in straight economics. He talks about how a contractor who tests the house and shows the homeowner what's actually wrong doesn't just close more jobs, they close bigger ones at far better margins. He shares real-world examples of jobs that went from a few $1,000s to $20,000 to $50,000 when diagnostic tools are used and the envelope and mechanicals are treated as a system. One of the really useful parts of the interview is when Ken shows how to get there without having to make a big upfront bet on vehicles, equipment, and people. Let's dive in. Ken Allison, welcome. Great to have you, my friend. Really appreciate you being here. So what we want to talk about today is this concept that's sort of emerged called permanent load reduction. And what's exciting about having you on is this is nothing new to you. You've spent your career, a big chunk of your career in the insulation and building envelope side of the business. And so we're just super excited to have you to sort of help talk about this subject and your perspective of having witnessed these markets and these attempts at getting, especially the HVAC industry, to adopt envelope services over a long period of time. So thanks so much for coming. Let's start just to make sure, most folks know you, but just let's introduce Ken, let's introduce IDI, and then give us just a little flavor because you travel the country training. You've got more face time, I think, with contractors than anybody else I know. And so just fill in some of those details.
So I came to the industry. I've always loved building materials and training on building materials, installing them, developing them. And IDI was actually my biggest customer. When I got into the world of spray foam, they were the people that, you always have that group that everything they ever told you came to pass. And that was them. Joe, the founder, and his son, Chris, I just fell in love with them. I was like, these guys are great. And as we developed a spray foam company and built it out nationally, it sold off a couple of times from the ownership that I worked for to eventually become Huntsman. But at that time, I went and did a couple of turnarounds on some other products and went to IDI and said, hey, I really don't want to start another company or do anything like that. I want to help you guys help contractors grow their company. And what really surprised me was they said, great, go do it. And I was like, well, wait, what are the rules? And they said, great, go do it. And so that's really how IDI works. They really want to provide resources for contractors, and everything I've asked for, they have given, they've provided, they cover. And so I had one year where we probably dropped $1 million on training, just going around the nation, providing to contractors marketing and, industry intelligence and operational intelligence and product intelligence, obviously. And we combined all that. But as part of that, what I love about your subject today was I'd always taught the insulators as well as the HVAC contractors that come.
Yeah.
You may replace the mechanical in your building 6 or 7 times during the time you own it or in the life of the building. But if you do the building envelope right, you'll only ever have to do that once.
Yeah.
And that to me was a big deal, because if I do it once, then after that time, every, fan, squirrel cage, load I do, everything is smaller and more controllable. If you bring me your pickup and the window is missing in the back of it and you go, Ken, my heater core sucks, you need to replace it right now, I've got a problem. And I go, Peter, please do me a favor. Let me replace your rear window. And if then your heater is working great, we're both golden. And I think that's kind of the thing I've talked to many of my HVAC contractors about is if they're having a conversation with someone, just say, we've got your equipment working absolutely wonderfully. It is tip top. But I think your house is kind of Swiss cheesed here. And I use more flowery language and, decorate it up a little. But I want them to understand their house is leaking everywhere. And putting in a bigger piece of equipment isn't going to make them better.
Yeah.
Fixing the load would make it better rather than fixing my equipment.
Got it. I do just want to emphasize something you said, because I'm not sure everyone knows this, that the training you offer is well beyond sort of the how-to sort of technical, installation training. So let's just make sure we emphasize that point.
I'm really glad you said that, because in the beginning, I would get hounded by vendors to come, quote, speak at the training. You and I both know what that means if a vendor's asking to speak. And so they would want to talk about their products. I never wanted it to be that. So at the training, you're going to find now there's 4 hours of building science in these 3 days where we're trying to teach you to manufacture spray foam, use a vacuum, what kind of, how blowing machines operate, marketing, and all of that. And so even when we talk about bidding, pricing, and profitability, the class evolved more into a business training rather than an insulator training or rather than an installer training. It's about how to add this business to another or how to get into this and kind of greenfield it. And what really shocked me was after we got done building it out, and I say that tongue in cheek because it changes every class we give. I keep adding slides. But after we got it built, I had contractors who had been in the business of insulation over 15 years come to the class 6 times. And I'd ask them point blank, I'm like, Seth, why are you here? Well, because every time I come, I get more out of it. That's what we want for it. And that's why at first we never charged. And then we decided, well, we had 70 people sign up in Denver and only 35 showed. And the CEO had to pay for food for everybody. And he's like, okay, now you have to charge.
Yeah.
So we'll charge $250 and probably spend about $1,000 per attendee.
Yeah, that's amazing, and such a gift to the industry beyond all the other things that IDI does in terms of the incredible range of products and warehousing and all of the things. So let's just move on to this topic we're here to talk about today, which is from my perspective the term permanent load reduction, and as far as we can tell, it originated at the Energy Conservatory, with Steve Rogers and Chris Hughes, and Jeremy Begley has been really promoting it within the HVAC world. What's your perspective? You've obviously been in this industry a lot longer than this term has been around. Is this as much of a sort of new angle and potential sort of driver of the HVAC industry embracing the envelope as I'm sort of hoping it is?
I would say it's a far less offensive way to describe it than I do, because, my term for it was totally different. My term was I had all these people go, well, we want to get into insulation. Well, what are you going to do? And they'd tell me, and I'd say, well, are you going to do X? No, we don't plan on doing that. And a lot of what they wanted to do was get in and do top-offs. They got in because of the rebates. They're like, hey, we're going to go in and add 3 inches. And I'd ask them, I'm like, have you ever been skiing before? Well, yeah. Okay, you and I go skiing. I give you a 10-inch thick cotton sweater. You're at R30. Bottom of the first hill, you're in R30 popsicle. Would adding 3 more inches to your sweater change the argument at all? Well, no. Okay, so if all you're going to do is go out and add more on, then you're a moron contractor in my book. That's how I rate you. You're now a moron contractor. And I would have a lot of HVAC companies come and say, well, but we don't want to take the time to go out with a blower door or, look for leaks in the building. We just want to go add more. And I said, well, here's the problem. You're going to get a bad reputation. You're going to go out, charge someone, but nothing will change. Now nobody thinks that insulation even works, and it really doesn't. If I give you and I shouldn't have said that, but if I give you instead one layer of Gore-Tex and the air can't get out, the energy can't get out, bottom of the first hill, you're having to unzip to let the energy out, or you're going to start to sweat. In buildings, we don't want to let the energy out. One of my first questions as class is, should buildings breathe? And everybody in the room, oh yeah. I'm like, no, they're already dead. We don't want a building to breathe. I want to seal it up and control where the air comes in, control where the air goes out. And once you realize that, and once you train a homeowner on that, they're never going to hire a moron contractor. And so as a HVAC company, I ask them, well, do you just swap boxes without testing them? Oh, no, we don't do that. Well, then why would you work on a house without busting out the red door of truth and an infrared camera and then show them? One of the funniest things that I see is the ticket. If I've got a company where all I'm doing is going out and adding 3 inches, my tickets are going to run, let's say, $1,200 to $5,000. But when I go show them the cancers in their walls, Sam Rashkin of the Department of Energy famously quoted this. I loved it. I'm at the Building Science Summer Camp, and he says, if you will show her infrared pictures of the cancers in her walls, she is 5 times more likely to fix it with you that day. My issue has been so many insulators grew up never testing anything. They go and do new construction. They jump into retrofit. They don't want to own a blower door. They don't want to own an infrared camera. And an infrared camera without a blower door, you're just looking at pretty pictures of where the sun's been. So, you go out, you test, you show them there's a problem. When do they want it fixed? Now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that becomes part of a much larger ticket. And not to roll buses out or give anybody's name away, but I can tell you, the contractors that I see go out that actually do the testing and do the jobs, if they are solely insulation, they are typically $12,000 to $20,000 a job. If they have the HVAC side and the insulation side, I've seen some of them that run $60,000 jobs all the time, and their average tickets are $25,000.
Exactly.
And so it's a full-blown business. But if I've got a health issue, if I've got a comfort issue, all I want it to do is go away. I'll give you a prime example. End of my street, 5,000 square foot house, way bigger than mine, but these people bought it 20 years ago. They've been miserable ever since they moved in. I had an insulator go bid that house at $6,000. So a mechanical contractor who'd been to my class goes down there, bids the house at $18,000, but shows Susan what they're going to do to fix it.
Right.
And gives her a 12-page book showing her the problems. Guess who got the job?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't money. They wanted it fixed.
Yeah. I mean, you've taken this exactly where I wanted it to go, which is that those in the know have discovered that this really is a good business, right? That this is, versus what you originally described as like, well, if you're just chasing a rebate and you have, you're sort of doing it because it's a requirement, that is not someone who's invested in this as a business model. So, you just mentioned one example, but say more about, when you've seen, and particularly those companies that started as mechanical contractors that have fully kind of embraced the envelope and what it's done for their business. Say more about that. Use some examples if you have them.
One of the most famous examples I know of would be a company that in New York. But at a national conference, he comes right out and tells everybody in the room, he says, I've got an electrical contracting company, a plumbing contracting company, an HVAC contracting company. And when I got into insulation, I found that it's my highest margin out of all 4 of my companies. And it's because when you truly fix the problem, when you go out and show them what's wrong, they love you. They want other services. They trust. If the next person, let's say I get a box swapper come in behind me, and they're going to say, you just need this new, I'll use my system. You need this new Train Ultimate system. This goes from 0 to 100. It's an infinity system. It doesn't even have 5 speeds. It's like 5,000. Okay. And they try to sell me that, but the other person showed me what was wrong with my house and told me no matter what I put in there, it's not going to work until I fix the building. If you didn't tell me that, you're out.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much you tell me about your equipment, you're out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the example you're using, which is fine for us to say, is Hal Smith of Halco in upstate New York.
Yes.
And let me assure you, he is still very much at the helm of
Ah,
Halco, regardless of
he's a rock star.
what chair he's sitting in. But he's been a guest. And the story he told was really 20 years ago when, in halfway through the 40 plus year history of Halco, he's in upstate New York. The duct systems are built for heating. They are inadequate for cooling. He found his way to insulation because of the cost effectiveness of addressing the envelope relative to the cost effectiveness of having to mess with an entire duct renovation. So he very much got there that way, but today, chuckles all the way to the bank about how much he loves the insulation sort of margin side of his business. So is how much of an anomaly is Hal around the country?
He's not.
Okay.
So let me put it this way. Like the people that come to IDI, because I've probably put 3,000 contractors into just spray foam by itself, not insulation.
Yeah.
The people that come to us, I put them into buckets. You've got those that have the stomach to go test buildings, and they do it well, and they make a lot of money doing it. And then you have those that don't want to go test, and they struggle to make margin. They struggle to fuel enough jobs. Because if you think about it, I'm going to do the same amount of prep on a 1-day job that I am a 3-day job, that I am a 5-day job. So that cost of prep is amortized across, let's say, 20 bags of insulation. But if I amortize it, it's still 20 bags of insulation. It's still the same prep. But if I do the vac out, I do the air seal, I do the test, I do more, maybe I look at some walls. By the time I've done all that, my ticket is 4 to 5 times what the other ticket was. And I still amortize that prep over that same job. So the prep costs far less. And, it's whether I'm selling or installing, the less time I spend selling, people say is better. Well, if I'm selling 4-day jobs and you're selling 3-hour jobs,
Yeah.
my hour and a half that I spend there pales in comparison to your half hour.
Yeah.
Because financially I'm rewarded.
Yeah. One of the things you've repeatedly said, and I just want to make sure it's coming through, is your strong endorsement of a diagnostic approach to the job, right? The use of a blower door, the use of infrared thermography, et cetera. And that diagnostic approach is what we consider one of the core tenets of high performance contracting. You've obviously trained a lot of people to do it. Imagine not everybody's succeeded, not everybody's stuck with it. What are the major, if you wear the shoes of the thoughtful but skeptical HVAC contractor, what do you hear from them about why they wouldn't go in this direction?
So part of it is the limited amount of techs and time. And I would say that that's probably number one. And I tell them I would never want my techs being my building science crew. What I would do is set up a hybrid, and this has really helped some of them better attack the industry. What I mean by a hybrid is we go out, we see them, we say, oh, Cheryl, here's 4 pictures of things I saw in your attic, and I really think your house is having issues. You can see you've got wind washing on the edge. You can see light coming through the ceiling. You don't have enough. There's some real air problems here. Let me tell you, we could just vac it out, air seal, blow it back in, and probably get you 80 to maybe even 90% of the way. But if you want, we can have our building science crew come out at no charge, and they'll do infrared cameras, run a blower door test, and do all that for you. What would you like?
Yeah.
At that point, now I've taken probably at least 50% of the burden off of this, what we'll call the long sale. And you'll find that a whole lot of Cheryls will move to the removal, air seal, and blowback without me spending that much time and not having to send a different crew out there. But for the times that will turn into an actual appointment, then I bonus back the tech. I don't want the tech to think they've lost anything. You turn it into a lead for the building science team, whether they sell it or not, if they show up, that's $80 on your check.
So Ken, I want to talk a little bit more about this staffing issue, because one of the things that we do tend to hear, and Chris Hughes said this about his own, family business that he worked in with his dad, was that his dad viewed the nature of a HVAC technician very differently than it would an installation person. And so that the kind of gap between those roles and et cetera was one of the impediments for him. So do you see that pattern more out there, that worry?
Wholeheartedly agree. I'll start with that. Let me say that I'm going to split the insulation business, because if you're taking it to the nth degree, which you'll find in, as a building science guy, I'm just automatically going to, because I'm not going to not use spray foam. There's situations where I need it. So let's say I'm not doing spray foam. My insulation installer, vacuum person needs to be fast, needs to be healthy, needs to be small, needs to be agile, got to be able to get in an attic, has to be able to handle heat. Totally different than my HVAC guy. My spray foamer has to understand how to repair things. If I got somebody off of a farm that knows how to fix a tractor, I got the right guy. I got a diesel generator that if it's not operating, I'm not operating. Yeah. I've got to have my chemist on board. I've got to, so there's a whole lot of pieces there. So you're absolutely correct. And I would look at it, what's even better about your question is what I explain to people when they come to class. I would never get into my industry by buying a rig and then going and looking for work. I think you get in with a blower door, an infrared camera, and a vacuum, because those are the highest margin things that I don't want to sub out. Then I get a blowing machine when I'm ready. The last thing I will pick up is a spray foam rig, because so many installers over the years who are terrible at marketing, terrible at running a business, they're out there operating every day, praying to God that someone will bring them a good salesperson. And we've got these people at IDI by the dozen. I would say that we can marry you to somebody that you could sub out to. And over the course of time, tell them, hey, Rob, you've been my guy for the last couple of years, but we're now doing a job a week. I don't want your logo on my job site anymore. If you want a permanent job, I'll pay you what you're making, plus buy your rig, plus this, and I'll literally envelop companies. One of my friends enveloped 4 companies in the last 2 years, all because they continued to get busier, but they didn't wind up adding crews and buying rigs on their own.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think, obvious, smart, thoughtful sort of approach to business, in software, we call it MVP, right? Minimum viable product is find a good sub and start seeing how it goes. And yet time and time again, I hear the complaint by the HVAC guys, I just can't find a decent insulation contractor, and vice versa also, right? So say more about that, because you've obviously made those marriages. You've been successful at doing it and sort of helping people with that ramp up path. What have been the success factors for finding good subs that can help you with that?
I think that's going to be heavily dependent on, your knowledge of the subs in the area. That's something we have intimately. I mean, over the years, whether they're still purchasing from us or they purchase from someone else, we've probably got 6,000 to 8,000 of them in the wake of IDI. And that's a lot of insulators. I understand there's way more HVAC contractors, but pretty much every insulator knows us. And we also know the ones that pay their bills, pay on time, take care of their customers. And so our reps that are out there in any given market, I mean, we have 65 distribution centers. So we've got people in trucks everywhere, including Alaska. So if you're looking for one, I would just reach out to your local IDI rep and say, hey, who do you know in this kind of situation that maybe I could work with instead of me greenfielding a company, or maybe I just want this piece of it? Because as I said, I would never want to sub out my vacuum. That's the biggest moneymaker in our industry, and I can put somebody on that and start with that. But however you do it, we're absolutely a resource for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Say more about the vacuum, because I know this is an impediment for a lot of new to the industry people. They don't understand that the money-making side of it, and they view it as costly and hard to charge for.
Easy to charge for. Sorry. So the vacuum, when you think of, if I was coming to do your ceiling, Peter, okay, if I were honest with you and you had old insulation, what people don't realize, that old insulation, a lot of the reason it itches so badly has nothing to do with the fiberglass and more to do, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but has less to do with the fiberglass than it does the phenolic binder, which will make some people welt up. I mean, it's like needles going in your skin. The new stuff is bound with sugar, so just getting that swapped out is one big thing. And so you have to educate the customer on that. Back to your attic. I can guarantee you within 5 foot of the entrance to your attic, if I have been swimming through your insulation to try and do some air sealing, as soon as that old stuff's right here down my shirt, I'm up there in your attic playing video games on my phone till you think I've done enough and I'm out of there. I don't care if it's my crew, your crew, whoever's crew. Swimming through insulation will never show you where the leaks are, and if you found them with a blower door, you'll know where they are, but the only way to truly get them is to get the old insulation out of the way. You can't air seal around dust particles. And so once I tell a homeowner that, they're like, oh, wow, so you mean you want $800 to swim through our insulation, but $1,800 to just take it out, and then you'll do a good job of air sealing? Yeah. And so when we look at a house, the going rate nationwide is anywhere from $1.25 to $2 a square foot. If I've got 1,000 square foot attic, realize the vacuums that we use today, I'm going to pick up between 300 and 600 square feet an hour. So, if I've got somebody that's a little slower, it's hot, we're crawling around, scissor trusses, maybe my rate goes down to 230. But either way, I could do a 2,000 square foot attic in a day. I have a girl, if you look up Jessica the Attic Queen, you know her. In Florida, Jessica by herself has vacked out 3,200 square feet in a day. So if I'm looking at doing that at $1.50, I do 2,000 square feet, that's $3,000 in a day. And my costs are labor, call it $100 for wear and tear on the vacuum, $100 for the truck. Let's throw $200 towards getting it to the dump, $200 in bags. It's hard to throw enough money away to not make money at this. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Yeah. So that's good. All right.
Yeah, you're not giving IDI much money in that situation, though. Might I say, I'm really praying you come back for some insulation.
Well, the piece that you can give money to IDI for is a good vacuum. I've heard so many stories of folks that just don't have good equipment, and consequently, the removal is much more difficult than it is for the folks who have that part of the operation well tuned. Right.
One 10-second thing on what you just said. If you buy a vacuum, please buy the Defender that goes in front of the vacuum. You're going to suck up metal pieces. You're going to suck up porcelain pieces. If they hit that fan blade, they're going to wreck your fan blade. That's about 4 hours, $500. Worse yet, a nail can come through the tube and hurt somebody. Buy the Defender. Our vacuums have the Defender already installed on them. You can't take it off.
Yeah. Ken, let's wrap up with how folks can engage with you, what trainings you may have coming up, how somebody listening to this might take a first step to go in the direction that we've been talking about.
Absolutely. By all means, reach out to Peter Troast's cell phone. He'll get you my contact. No, you can reach us at idi-insulation.com. They'll absolutely give you my cell phone number because I'm obviously happy to talk to anybody about it. Hopefully you've got some time on your hands when we do, but that or reach out to any one of our branches across the nation.
Great. Awesome. And what about your trainings? Because they're all listed on the IDI site, correct?
They are under trainings. In fact, there's one in Boston in 2 weeks, one in Dallas the week after that, one in Indianapolis in August. We try and run many trainings a year, but be aware the one-day trainings are management operational trainings for people who have been in the business or are really looking to optimize their money. The 3-day training with the building science is what you're looking for.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Ken Allison, thank you so much. It's so great to have you. You are a gift to the industry, and it's great to know you.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to know you as well. I really appreciate Energy Circle and everything you guys do.
The High Performance Edge podcast is brought to you by our company, Energy Circle, the marketing agency that for 15 years has served the most successful high-performance contractors in the country. Curious about whether we might be a good fit for your marketing and website needs? It begins with a no-obligation, no hard sales discussion of your business and goals and an honest assessment of whether we can make an outsized impact on your company. Check out energycircle.com or email me directly at peter@energycircle.com.